Hi, now that we've understood content creation and distribution, let's talk about the next step, which is adoption and retention. So, on the stages of product adoption, uh, there are five steps. There's product awareness, there's product interest, then product evaluation, then product trial, and finally, product adoption and retention. So, to get to product adoption, you need to make sure that your product is well known. People have generated you have generated some interest among the users. Then your users have evaluated your product, they have given it a shot, they've tried the product, and then finally some of them have adopted it, and some of them have retained in your app or your product. So what is product awareness? Product awareness is very simply the very first stage, and the idea is to generate top of the funnel audience, people who are remotely interested in your product. You would want to make sure that most people know about your product as soon as possible, right? So consumers need to know that your product exists in the market, very simply, and that is done by road shows, that is done by seminars, that is done by doing social media ads, that is done by digital ads, it is done by various methods. Then there's product interest. You have to generate enough curiosity and interest in your product, and that's why the gadgets and the smartphones and the new age products, they launch their landing pages much before the actual product is ready, so that they can start generating product interest as early as possible, because generating product interest is a very difficult job. And they will create teasers, they will create all sort of messaging which will generate curiosity that the world is going to change, it's going to be different, it's going to be that, it's going to be a new age altogether, right? So you can use websites, you can use mobile apps, you can use games, you can, depending on how much money do you have, um, depending on that, you can choose to create game shows, you can create a quiz, you can create any kind of things. You can, it's again, creativity is your limit, nothing else. And at times, for example, mobile phone companies a lot of times purposefully leak their screenshots and images much before the actual launch, so that they can keep the audience hooked. Then it's a time to evaluate the product or get the product evaluated. Now some of the product companies would use beta users, alpha users, and they will deploy their product very carefully in this audience one by one. So in certain cases, uh, the products are deployed to the influencers alone, so that they can test out the market, and the companies work with the influencers to build out the right product. um, but whatever said and done, essentially consumers will compare and evaluate your product at this stage. These consumers might be these consumers might be beta users, might be influencers, might be anybody, right? So it's very important to have readily available information on your product. It's important that you are available for your product when the consumers need their access. It's very important that you have instrumented analytics and all sort of other tools, so that you can monitor customer behavior. How exactly are they using the product? Now, depending on the product, whether it's a mobile app or it's a hardware product, this might be purely technical, purely software driven, or it might require you to be there and observe what the customer is doing. Whatever it is, the entire idea is that at this stage, it's important that you are able to figure out how the customers are behaving, and how are they evaluating, which parameters are they evaluating on. Are these parameters the same as the earlier parameters that you identified when you're doing your user research, or they are turning out to be very different, right? So in US, for example, PC Mag is a very popular magazine that users use to uh, compare different products. So you might have to reach out to PC Mag if it's a hardware product typically, or yeah, nowadays actually software also, uh, to uh, to let the customers know that we exist. Similarly, nowadays all the new age companies, all the new age startups are launching also on Product Hunt. all the new products are being put up on Product Hunt, and that has become a new playing ground for almost all the innovators to discuss and to discover new interesting products. Then comes product trial. Now, product trial ranges from very simple samples that you might have come across at different malls and different shops. Starbucks does it, Costco does it. Um, all the SaaS companies, all the software SaaS companies, they also have trial, freemium trial or paid trial of all sorts. Why? Because buying your product is a big commitment. So if they can get a trial of your product as early as possible, um, it might be easier for you to close the deal, and hence um, uh, very few companies can actually potentially sell without a trial. Even Apple has an Apple Store. Why? Because for a few reasons, apart from the trial experience, but they also want to create that premium experience or the premium luxury Apple experience that they keep talking about. If it is larger than life and it's in front of you in the form of an Apple Store, it becomes further embodied because you can see something physically, and it has been proven that people uh, people still connect very heavily with physical objects. So a big store in a prime location lends that brand image to the product also. Then comes product adoption. So at this stage, the customer has gone through the entire cycle. The first top of the funnel has been filtered down to the people who have tried the product, and some of them have loved the product to the extent that they would like to buy the product, right? And at this stage, you would want to make this as less distraction worthy as possible. Keep the payment process, adoption process as simple as possible. You also need to make sure that the user experience and the customer support is super good, proactive, and ready to support the customer. This product adoption itself is a big topic in itself, but the idea of this unit is to give you a sense um, of how does a how does the product release planning go through, and what are the aspects, what are the important things that you need to worry about. So, for instance, on Amazon, when they launched Amazon one click buy experience, that was a massive, um, I would say it was a disruption in itself because people were so used to using two or three or four step. So, for instance, when Amazon launched its one click buy experience, it was a massive disruption because people were so used to all to buy via multiple steps, and by converting that into one click, the entire friction was gone. And somebody who has already seen the product, has already liked the product, and has gone through the entire first few phases of product buying, is just removed from the adoption by one step, one click, right? Making it dead simple for people to adopt. And lastly, customer retention. Now, customer retention is a very complex topic, and it deserves it. I mean, it's a large topic by itself. It deserves a course in itself. But what I want to talk about is, in simple terms, customer retention is dependent on few things. One, did you deliver on your promise? Did you deliver on your promise consistently? Was your onboarding and the entire experience as smooth as you promised or as smooth as the customer expected? For example, if you're in a field you're in a space where all the other apps have very smooth experience, performance wise or in general the UX wise, but your product doesn't suffers from some other bugs or some other issues, there's a good solid chance that people will actually abandon your product and start looking for something else, right? Another important thing here is that the customer retention why customer adoption retention is very important is because the cost of retention in general is lower than the cost of adoption. So if you can retain more people, you'll be able to grow your user base much faster than purely by adoption at a much cheaper rate. right? So, for example, Bain and Co. published that a 5% increase in customer retention can lead to 75% increase in revenue, because few things start happening. Number one, people are more invested in your product, and that's why they're more invested in your product success. And the more they use it, the more likely they're going to talk about it in their own groups and circles, right? uh, and this has been further evidenced by Gartner, which stated that 80% of the company's future revenues comes from just 20% of existing customers, and these are typically would be the people who have been retained from a long time, right? So that's all about customer retention. So to conclude, adoption and retention are the two important aspects that you are worrying about when you're doing your entire release planning. That's all you're bothered about. uh, by doing your content messaging, the product messaging, the product positioning, etc., you essentially help the user reach to a point where they are just about to adopt the product. Now your task here in adoption and retention is, number one, to deliver a stunning experience so that the user is confident and is comfortable with the product promise and wants to experience the product desperately. And once he has bought the product or has adopted the product, then you need to consistently deliver the promise that you came up with. The promise could be faster experience, could be smoother experience, could be hassle free experience, could be a cheaper experience, whatever that is. You need to provide the same experience consistently. And if you do that, the customer will be retained for sure. It's easier said than done, and there are multiple tools to analyze your adoption and retention. One of the most popular is cohort analysis. Uh, Using cohort analysis, you can check out your retention much better way. It's also important to baseline your adoption and retention stats with your industry and your kind of products, and keep measuring, because your entire success relies on this adoption and retention. Okay, so that's all for now. Thank you.